Hi guys, this is Teacher Abby. Last week we have started studying about America, right? So, do you still remember what you have learned from before? But before that, I have to ask you some question. Okay, question number 1. Okay, who was apart from the England church who had worship separately? Okay, correct. They're the Puritans. Okay, second question. Okay, where did the separatists used to travel England go? Which country? Correct. So it's the Holland. Okay, so question number 3. What is the name of the boat? Do you still remember what is the name of the boat that they used to travel to go to North America? Yes, that's right. It's the Mayflower. So the fourth question. What did William Bradford call the people in the Mayflower? Okay, so he called it the Pilgrims. Okay, so this week we will continue to learn about the US who ventures more on the 7th century. Okay, as we learned about the Puritans who again? They're the separatists, correct. Okay, who went North America to gain freedom to worship God. But that's a kind of it was not a total freedom. So there's a kind of no total freedom. Okay, the British thought it was the right time, okay, for the colonies to put off the money back to the England treasure box. Okay, so for their treasure. So what they did is they make a simplest way to pass the laws. Okay, to pass laws requiring Americans to pay extra taxes. Okay, so they have to pay extra taxes to the British. So the Parliament and the King ministers wrote a series of tax laws. Okay, those new tax laws, okay, they call it Act. Remember, they call it Act. Okay, so they have the first act. The first act is the Sugar Act. And then let's focus more on the second act, which is the Stamp Act. Okay, the Stamp Act told them to pay extra money, okay, remember, extra money to Great Britain every time they bought what? Newspapers, pamphlet, dice, or even the playing cards. So every time also they have a legal document like the will or the diploma was written, the colonies also should pay fees to get it stamped and get it legalized. So made it official. So they have to pay extra taxes. The American began to argue about these tax laws in the General Assembly meeting of the colonies of the leaders. Now we go to Boston Tea Party. Okay, the Boston Tea Party holds a significant factor about this one. So it's a case which North American colonies repelled, meaning repelled is they stopped the attack and turn away. So they repelled the excessive tax collection, okay, of the Great Britain Kingdom. Then the American rebelled. So nag-alsa sila. So they rebelled on the evening of December 16, 1773. So how many men? They have 60 men wrapped themselves in Indian blanket and then headdresses as feathers. Okay, and then they marched to the dock or to the wharf where the 3 British tea ships lay at anchor. So kung nasaan nandun yung British ship. And then they dump how many? They dump big amount of chests of tea. 342 chests of tea in the Boston harbor. So that arises and spark arises or spark or trigger of the Revolutionary American War. So the American Revolutionary War. Because they dump how many again? 342 chests of tea bags in Boston Harbor. On April 18, 1775, a British soldiers or troop of British soldiers, so they march on Boston, okay, under cover dark. So they planned most of the night to arrive at the Concord, okay, suddenly. So what will they do? What do you think? Okay, they were surprised, the Americans, so they will take their weapons away. But of course, most of the news has wings. So there were two American Boston men. They were Paul Reverie and then William Doss. So they have the job of riding Concord ahead of the British troops and warn them. So they have to warn them. So kailangan nilang bigyan ng warning. So they have to warn the Americans. So they gallop. So nangabayo sila. So they gallop it hurriedly to all night, calling out the news as they rode. British are coming! British are coming! So winar nila yung Americans. So they warned the Americans. The American war that began in this way, and then it lasted for 1780. And then France, who had been hostile, so meron din silang alitan. So may hindi magandang relasyon, who had been hostile to the Britain, joined the war. Also the Spanish and also the Netherlands joined the war. In 1781, Washington Army managed to corner the largest British forces, okay, at where? Yorktown. Largest British forces at Yorktown. On the coast of Virginia, a French fleet sailed up to the shore, cutting off the British retreat. Finally, British commander Lord Cornwallis decided to lay down his arms. They had no choice but to lay down their arms. So according to the tradition, they have to play the military band, and then with the old tune of the world turned upside down. The world turned upside down as the military band. So, and then that's the time when the British surrender. In 1783, the Great Britain signed an agreement again, so in a treaty giving the colonies their independence. In 1783, their independence, which the Great Britain signed. The Americans were no longer colonies, so they were no longer colonies from the Great Britain. Now they were citizens of a new country. After the peace treaty, with England was signed, what happened? There were 13 American colonies. So the 13 American colonies, they called it 13 states in the United States of America. So from north, you have the New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island and Plantation, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, then South Carolina, and then the Georgia. So those are the 13 states, So you should remember that there are 13 states. Trouble started right away. So each state was busy planning how to make treaties with the foreign countries. So the 13 different treaties. American leaders like Alexander Hamilton, from New York, and then James Madison with Virginia, and then Benjamin Franklin from Pennsylvania, and then George Washington, himself, saw that the new states would soon be in trouble. It was a time for all the states to join together, and make a federal government, a government that had the authority to act all for the 13th state. Remember, it's a government to act all for the 13th state. Okay, many Americans, so they hated that idea because they said to themselves, we had fought a war for free of that. So why will the federal government of the Great Britain maybe will do it again, because they don't have that kind of security. It maybe it will be repeat again. So how could they be sure that the federal government wouldn't take away the power? So how could they be sure that the federal government could take the power of each state to do it as they thought it best? So they had, they had the fear that it will repeat again. So what do you think? Do they need the federal government? Okay, finally, 12 states offered to send their leaders to Philadelphia. So the 12 leaders was sent to Philadelphia for a constitutional convention. And for a constitutional convention, there were the 13th leaders. They sent it to Philadelphia. Okay, so what will they do there? So they will discuss a need. Is that a need for the government, for the federal government? So is that a need for the doing again a federal state? Okay, the delegates, yung mga delegados, each representative, okay? So, they arrived in Philadelphia in 1787. And George Washington was elected unanimously. Okay, so he was elected by the chairman of the meeting. So, he was elected as chairman of the meeting. The delegates wanted to make the new constitution would give a United States of America the power to act together. So they have the power to act together, but also act separately because they have 13 states. So power to act together if they need to, but they need to go separately because of each state. Finally, they agreed on a plan that would divide the government of the United States in two houses. Remember, two houses. Okay, these houses would be responsible for writing the laws and voting on them. So one of the house would be called House of the Senates. So before they were called House of Commons and House of the Lords. Now, in writing out laws and voting them, one house should be called House of Senate, writing laws and then voting. Okay, so no matter what is the size, each has to have representative. How many representative? What do you think? So there are two representatives. So there are two representative now in the Senate. Okay, they are now called as senators. So two representative in the Senate. They will sit in the Senate. They will now be called as the senators. Okay, that way each state would have an equal voice. So they will have an equal voice. No state, of course. So no 13th state should have more power than any other. So they should have equal. So patas lang, fair enough. So dapat pantay-pantay. But each state would also get to elect a representative. Before we have the House of the Senate. Now we have the representative, House of the Representative. For each 30,000 people, the representative would meet together. Okay, they have to elect representative. Okay, they should elect one representative for 30 people, and then they will meet together in the House of Representatives. Now remember, you have the House of Senate and then the House of Representatives. Then every person in every state would have the same amount. So the same also, every state and every person, we have the same amount of power in the House of Representatives. So the same. They have the same amount like in the House of Representatives, so 13 states. So all the laws of the country would have to be approved, but not only by both houses. Who are the two houses? House of the Senate and then House of the Representative. Not only it should be approved, but also by the states and by the people. Okay, together these houses would be called the Congress. So this will be called the Congress. The Congress would be the legislative part. Remember, you should remember, Congress, well, legislative part. Congress is the legislative part, okay, of the new federal government. So they will be responsible in passing the laws, declaring war, make treaties against the foreign countries. Okay, but they need the power to keep the Congress from doing wrong things. So one should stop them if they do the wrong things. So the delegates decided to have a leader, okay, who has the power to veto or to stop the law that the Congress might pass. So do you have any idea who can stop the law that the Congress passed? Okay, so the leader who has the power to stop the Congress is now called the president. President, okay. He wouldn't have the power to make laws or declare war or even make treaties, but he would be able to stop the Congress. Remember, stop the Congress from passing on the laws. So he holds the power to stop. Okay, then, and also if he got carried off, if the Congress got carried away, president can stop it. But who would make sure that the Congress and the president would both follow the laws and pass them? Who do you think? Okay, the federal government needed a third branch. So the third branch, a court of judges. So a court of judges who will judge accordingly based on how it is properly observed. Okay, so accordingly on how it's properly observed, they will now call it the Supreme Court. Okay, the Supreme Court. Supreme Court became the judicial branch of the government. Now, each of the three parts of the government had to cooperate with each other, okay, as one. So they had to cooperate with each other. So no one branch no one branch of the government could grab, okay, no one branch of the government could grab all the power by itself. So they have the equal power. Okay, so Congress, the legislative branch, and then the president, the executive branch, and then the judicial, which is the judges, okay, or the Supreme Court holds the three parts. So they have the equal authority. Not everyone was pleased. Okay, remember, not everyone was pleased with the Constitution. So Patrick Henry, who was the governor in Virginia in 1778 to 1776 to 1789, was afraid that the president would become a king. Okay, would become a king, and that the Congress would be able to use too much power against the people. Okay, he wanted the Constitution to have, yes, he wanted the Constitution to have a Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights, attached to it is a list of powers that the government could never use, okay, could never use against the people of the United States, okay. The Bill of Rights said that the Bill of Rights said that the federal government could never behave like a king. So the Bill of Rights said that the federal government could never behave like a king, okay, towards its people, and even there seems to be a good reason in doing so. The Constitution was finished, finally, okay, and the United States was truly a united nation. Okay, the first election for a president of the United States were held in February 1789. Okay, and George Washington won unanimously. So no question asked. Why was Patrick Henry afraid that the president will dominate the American Constitution? Yes, he was afraid that the president will become a a king in England and in France. But George Washington didn't try to become a king. And he refused to become a president again. So he refused because he doesn't want to be a king. So he refused to be a president again. So he doesn't want to become a king, only a president. He knew that America didn't need a president who will hold the power for life. Okay. Do you understand now about the American Constitution? Philippines also follow this kind of system. Okay. What do you think? Do you need a strong king or do you need a president? A president who has respect of the separation of powers. Okay, the answer now is yours. Okay, I want to talk more about the president. Okay, I want to talk more about the president George Washington, but there isn't enough time. Okay, so I want you to read. Okay, please read your weekly book. The title is Who is George Washington? Okay, so I will bring another American story again next time. Till then, see you. Bye.